Volkswagen's third generation Touareg is a large luxury SUV that in this updated form is now smarter looking, better equipped and more efficient. As before, this car is dynamically better than you expect it to be both on-road and off-it. True, it can't offer more than 5 seats, but then neither can key rivals like the Lexus RX or Porsche's Cayenne. If you're looking at one of those contenders in this segment, then this underrated Touareg offers a very complete package with a value proposition that could prove hard to resist.
Large luxury SUVs tend to be more about style than substance, but here's one that's different: the much improved version of Volkswagen's third generation Touareg. The original version of this car, launched in 2003 and named after a North African tribe, represented the Volkswagen brand's first venture into the luxury SUV market, and that 7L design struck a chord with quite a few buyers in this segment. The second generation 7P version, introduced in 2010, was less successful, but Volkswagen regained momentum in 2018 with that model's successor, the third generation CR design that we're looking at here. As a result, by the time of this updated model's introduction in late 2023, well over 1.1 million Touaregs have been sold worldwide, and including about 58,200 in the UK. As with the pre-facelift model, it's still only a 5-seater, and it remains one of the least expensive ways into the MLB Evo platform technology, which the Volkswagen Group's ritziest brands use for their most desirable large SUVs, which is why the chassis used here is shared with a Porsche Cayenne. Some sections of the driveline are borrowed from Lamborghini Urus. There is exotic suspension from a Bentley Bentayga, and also semi-autonomous driving tech from a fashionable Audi Q8. So quite a CV, and unlike those VW Group cousin models, it's actually quite at home off-road. This car, like its predecessors, aims to provide an appealing compromise between the extreme SUV-ness of, say, a Toyota Land Cruiser or a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and more paved surface-orientated large SUVs like the BMW X5 and the Mercedes GLE. All these models have been recently updated, but does this Volkswagen offer the perfect combination of their various attributes? Well, you'll need the industry's most comprehensive review, of course, the car and driving road test, to find that out. Despite the screen fest that greets you inside, there's something quite old school about taking a seat behind the wheel of a Touareg, partly because this Volkswagen does sit you a little higher than most of its rivals. Now, as we're going to see, that's a feeling that's carried forward to the road-going experience. This refreshed version of the third generation design has gained a golf-like steering wheel with lots of haptic buttons. In our view, that's not necessarily a step forward. There's still a tank-like solid vibe though that you can't help liking, but will it be tank-like to drive? Well, let's see. As part of a facelift headlined by nothing more than a fancier set of LED headlights, you really wouldn't expect much to have changed as part of the engineering and the drive dynamics of this Mark III CR Series Touareg, and that is pretty much how it proves. Volkswagen says it's added a new roof load sensor integrated with the running gear electronics, so systems like electronic stability control can intervene more quickly to increase driving stability. But really the most significant change here is the wider availability of the kind of plug-in hybrid powertrain that customers in this segment increasingly now want as an alternative to diesel. With this in mind, Volkswagen has added an extra 381 PS e-hybrid model to sell alongside the top 462 PS R Performance PHEV that it introduced into the range in 2021. It's the R we're trying here. Unlike its VW Group partner Porsche though, Volkswagen hasn't dumped diesel. On the contrary, the 3-litre TDI 6-cylinder unit remains a firm favourite for Touareg customers, and in our view it still represents the sweet spot in the range. It's offered in 231 PS and 286 PS forms with both units. As with all Touaregs, they're both mated to 4-motion all-wheel drive and an 8-speed torque converter automatic gearbox. A 340 PS 3-litre V6 TSI turbocharged petrol variant. That's the conventionally engined alternative, but it's really difficult to see why you would choose that one. There is a certain amount of pragmatism about the way that the VW Group has developed this Mark III model Touareg to sit amongst its other large SUV offerings. They all run on the same MLB Evo platform. Don't give it 7 seats like an Audi Q7, or wood trim like a Bentley Bentayga, or, which is what concerns us in this section, super sharp handling like a Porsche Cayenne. Not that this Volkswagen has been denied the key elements of dynamic technology which distinguish its group stablemates. On the contrary, buyers who avoid base trim and are able to add in the professional chassis pack will get the active roll compensation system. That's the one that features on the Bentley. That setup's active anti-roll bars do a great deal to cancel out body roll at speed through sharper bends. A mid-level conventionally engined Touareg can even have the rear axle steering system. You'll also find on the exotic Lamborghini Urus, which at speed gives you sharper corner turn-in as the rear wheels turn fractionally in the same direction as the wheels at the front. In addition, for urban motoring, the same EAWS setup works in reverse at speeds below 23 miles an hour. It makes the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction to those at the front. So this reduces the turning circle radius by a whole meter to just 11.9 meters. To give you some perspective on that figure, rather incredibly, given this car's size, that's almost the same as you get in a Golf. All this cutting-edge technology costs extra, of course, as does the air suspension system, which is a costly option with base trim, but which is standard on the other two variants. It's a 2-chamber setup rather than the rather more sophisticated 3-chamber system that features further up the Volkswagen Group hierarchy. Perhaps that's why it doesn't waft you over the porous surfaces and speed humps with quite the magic carpet-like demeanour that you might hope for from such a system. Still, the way that it does automatically lower itself by up to 25 millimeters on the highway at speeds of over 74 miles an hour, that's pretty neat. It's a kind of environment in which, predictably, this Touareg really does feel most at home. Sure, if you fitted all the expensive extra dynamic gadgetry that we mentioned earlier on, it is quite happy to attack a twisty series of bends in a, well, let's say a reasonably spirited fashion. But you never sense that its heart is really in it, especially if you're in a PHEV model like this one, which will be 388 kilos heavier than the conventional diesel version. Across the range, the slightly overlight steering doesn't help, nor when sharp throttle applications are needed does the slightly delayed reaction that you sometimes get from the 8-speed Tiptronic auto gearbox. There's a driving mode system, of course. This driver profile selection setup offers eco, comfort, normal and sport settings, plus there's an individual screen to set your own parameters. As usual with systems of this sort, these alter steering feel, throttle response, gear change timings and ride quality. That's courtesy of the standard adaptive damping system. Unfortunately though, there's not the auto option you'd really want on a car like this that would make all the decisions for you. You will probably try the slightly more focused sport mode a few times in your first few weeks of ownership, but then you'll probably completely forget all about it because the other settings suit the character of this car so much better. Its comfort zone really lies in wafting about Range Rover style as you enjoy this commanding driving position, and it combines with excellent all-round visibility to ensure that this Touareg isn't as tricky to drive in town as you might expect a 2-meter wide large SUV to be. And particularly beyond the city limits, you'll enjoy wonderful refinement, helped by the fact that the build quality here is far better than, say, any Land Rover product would be. In fact, it's actually better than almost anything comparable that we can think of. As for performance, well, let's start with the 3-litre TDI diesel option that most will want, offered as we said earlier in 231 and 286 PS forms. Rest to 62 occupies either 7.5 or 6.1 seconds depending on the variant, and if you regularly commute on de-restricted German autobahns, you'll be able to hit respective top speeds of either 135 or 146 miles an hour on the way to the office. Both power plant options, as with all Touaregs, deliver the same prodigious brake towing capacity. This is one of the few passenger cars able to pull along up to 3,500 kilos. The gruntier 286 PS unit will tug its load more effectively thanks to a torque rise from 500 to 600 Newton meters. For reference, the 3-litre TSI petrol version improves the performance stats to 6.1 seconds and 155 miles an hour. However, with the petrol version, the torque figure falls to 450 Newton meters. That's the same figure as the base E hybrid model, and that makes 62 miles an hour in 5.9 seconds. We're not quite sure why you'd want to go faster than that in the Touareg, but there is certainly the chance to do so in the top R model, which, as I mentioned earlier on, is the variant that we've chosen to test here. That evocative badge suggests a raughty exhaust, neck-snapping performance and the usual extra race R drive mode. But actually a Touareg R doesn't have any of that, nor is it intended as any sort of credible alternative to a comparable BMW M or Mercedes AMG SUV model. And with basically the same turbo petrol V6 as the ordinary E hybrid model, just boosted in power to 462 PS, with the same modest 450 Nm torque figure, it's equally misleading to present it as any sort of follow-up to that memorable 5-litre V10 diesel-powered Touareg R50 model of 2007, which had so much torque that Volkswagen UK once hitched it up to tow a 155-ton Boeing 747. What we've got instead of all that is the flagship variant that suits likely customers rather better if the sales figures for this variant so far are anything to go by. Keeping that sales momentum going with this updated Touareg R though might be difficult because, disappointingly, as with the ordinary Touareg E Hybrid, the PHEV powertrain in use here is the older VW Group PHEV package based around a 2.9-litre V6, a 138 PS electric motor and a 14.3 kilowatt-hour battery. We had hoped that Volkswagen would have taken up the opportunity presented by this facelift to update that setup to the far more modern plug-in hybrid system which was lately adopted by the updated version of this Touareg's Porsche Cayenne cousin, which in e-hybrid form uses a 3-litre V6, a completely new 176 PS electric motor and a much bigger 25.9 kilowatt-hour battery. That's why that car can go up to 46 miles between charges, while both PHEV Touaregs are limited to just 31 miles. A rival Mercedes GLE 400e PHEV can go up to 70 miles on battery power alone, so yes, this Touareg's plug-in tech is some way behind the curve. But you might still like one. Despite nearly 2.5 tons of curb weight, it does feel reasonably responsive, well in sport mode anyway, with 62 miles an hour dispatched in 5.1 seconds en route to 155 mph. That's with the hybrid drive setting engaged. Switch to electric mode and the top speed on battery power alone will be 84 miles an hour. The switch between the two drive sources is reasonably smooth, but it's certainly noticeable, and you'll particularly hear that engine if you take up the rather inefficient eco drive mode option of using the V6 combustion unit to act as a generator for the battery. Another feature that's carried over from the regular e-hybrid model is the reserve charge feature, which allows you to preserve battery charge for when you might need it at the end of the journey you're on. Air suspension, well, that's standard, but disappointingly, given the handling agility that you'd usually want from a Volkswagen R model, this one can't be ordered with the rear axle steering and the active roll compensation systems that we mentioned earlier on. The PHEV packaging just doesn't allow for it. We mentioned earlier that all Touaregs get Volkswagen's 4Motion four-wheel drive system, which uses a central differential lock capable of transferring up to 70% of torque to the front axle and up to 80% to the rear. Here the setup's been optimized for tarmac use, and that means that unlike the first and second generation Touaregs, you can't specify this one with the kind of kit that you'd need for really serious off-roading. Stuff like a low-range gearbox, fully locking centre and rear differentials. Hardly anyone took up the option of having that kind of kit with the two previous generation models anyway, and VW can no longer be bothered to offer it for the very few folk who want it here. Still, this Mark III model Touareg remains significantly more capable off-piste than most of its segment contemporaries. As standard, the driver profile selection dial offers some extra 4Motion active control settings, snow and off-road, with the latter mode offering further auto or expert setting options, depending on how professional you feel in the gnarly stuff. Expert tweaks all the car's electronic systems specifically for off-piste use, and auto allows the car itself to decide exactly how much its systems should be orientated for use off the beaten track. In addition, the centre dash screen's vehicle section has a selectable inclination display. If you're going to be testing any of this out on the muddy stuff, it'll help enormously if you have a Touareg fitted out with air suspension, and that's operable via this second rotary dial on the centre console. With ordinary steel springing, you're limited to one standard 215mm level of ride height. With air suspension fitted though, you have options, two options in fact. Twist the control dial out of load and road to off-road and you'll raise the ride height by 25mm. Turn it further to off-road plus and you'll raise it by as much as 70mm. Go for that final mode and you'll find it makes quite a difference to your Touareg's ultimate off-road stats. The front and rear ramp angles, which would be rated at 25 degrees with steel springs, they're raised to 31 degrees. The breakover angle, that's raised from 18.5 to 25 degrees, and the maximum wading depth, well, that's increased from 490mm to 570mm. The maximum gradient climbing angle, 60%, and the traversing angle, 35 degrees, remain unaffected by your choice of suspension. None of which will be of much interest to the typical Touareg buyer. There'll be someone who will be far more interested in this Volkswagen's tarmac-orientated technology. Maybe the IQ Light LED matrix headlights, which adapt not only to surrounding traffic, but also to the weather and to the topography of the road, featuring a wider reach for high-speed highway use. There is also the way that this Touareg can drive, brake and steer itself at speeds of up to 37 miles an hour, with the optional travel assist feature specified and activated for urban use. Many potential buyers will also like the trailer assist feature, which can help counter steer anything you're towing into a tight space. And maybe also the optional night vision system. Now this uses a thermal imaging camera to register infrared radiation coming from people or animals, so that can display more clearly for you after dark. Plus, tick the right box with this revised model and you can even stand outside the car and park it with an app on your phone. It's all satisfyingly sophisticated, exactly as a modern, large, luxury SUV ought to be. The Touareg has always tried to be unpretentiously elegant, and if you like the update changes that have been made to this third generation CR series version, you'll probably think that it still is. As years have gone on, the overtly off-road orientated DNA of the original Mark I Touareg has been abandoned in favour of more luxury orientated crossover cues, and there are even more of those here. Not much has changed from the side except for the redesigned wheels, which identify trim level. 20-inch rims for base elegance, 21 inches for mid-range black edition, and these 22-inch Estoril black alloys for this top R version, which also feature blue R branded calipers. Puddle lights now project brand logos onto the ground beneath the door mirrors at night. And as before, there's a slightly swept back roofline with subtle roof bars, plus prominent rear haunches, concave indentations in the flanks, and a precise shoulder line which runs above the door handles, emphasizing nearly 5 meters of body length. What Volkswagen most wants to talk about, though, as part of this update is the front. The whole upper radiator grille now emphasises the Touareg's width even more noticeably, and it showcases the key update with this car, the new IQ Light HD Matrix headlamps, which use a sea of extremely bright pixels generated by 19,216 micro LEDs in each light unit, which better illuminate the road ahead. There are 3 LED modules, 3 L-shaped LEDs for the daytime running lights, and to fit in with the current Volkswagen fashion, an illuminated central horizontal strip which extends from both sides of the VW badge. The style of this lower intake section varies depending on trim, with chrome embellishment at entry level, but a black theme with the 2 differently styled plusher models. There are changes at the rear too, where to emphasise the 1984mm width, the light bar now extends across the tailgate with an horizontal LED line illuminating on the upper side of the strip when the lighting's active. This line illuminates in the day too, and links revised light clusters which incorporate a total of 6 L-shaped LEDs. For the first time in a Volkswagen, there's a red illuminated brand logo too. As usual though, what's more important is what lies beneath all the panel work, namely the MLB Evo modular longitudinal matrix platform, which also underpins the Volkswagen Group's 5 other large luxury SUV models: Audi's Q7 and Q8, the Porsche Cayenne, the Bentley Bentayga, and the Lamborghini Urus. That's facilitated a stiff body structure, 48% of which is fashioned from aluminium. But it's still one that's pretty portly. The unladen weight of this R version is a prodigious 2,481 kilos, and that's more like the kind of weight you'd associate with an EV of this size. Okay, enough with the exterior. Time now to take a seat up front and experience the part of the car that Volkswagen hopes might really sell it to you. On the way, we'll mention the feature which allows you to configure 3 differently animated coming home and leaving home lighting effects as you leave or approach the car. Now this is, in Volkswagen's words, an interior shaped for the digital age, and it was right from the original launch of this Mark III model, provided you got a version equipped with what the brand calls the InnoVision cockpit package. Essentially, this set of digital instrument gauges here, and this super large so-called Discover Pro Max 15-inch central dash display. Both these screens join seamlessly together to try to turn the fascia into one big functioning screen, a setup that was only optional on pre-facelifted versions of this car. But with this updated model, Volkswagen standardized it, at the same time as making a few useful infotainment updates too, and adding this restyled steering wheel here, complete with a selection of haptic switches. We've got a selection of tactile cabin upgrades too, smarter high-gloss black buttons on the center console, plus redesigned illuminated trims on the dash panel and an added Touareg logo too. Double decorative seams feature on the door panels, and the side trims of the center console here are now made of a haptically enhanced foam, which is nicer on the knees. Despite all this, the ambiance still isn't as lavishly luxurious as you'll find with some competitors. Notably, this model's similarly priced Audi Q7 close cousin, a vibe not helped here by the cheap-feeling plastic key. Nevertheless, the cabin's very nice indeed, particularly in this top R model, of course, surrounding you with now improved mood lighting, beautifully stitched door and dash finishing, and a cool, classy, Teutonic cabin vibe. Plus, as before, you sit a bit more commandingly than is the case with some other large luxury SUVs. But you're going to want to know about that InnoVision cockpit screen setup. It offers the illusion of a single pane of glass, although the surface is actually subtly split in two just behind the steering wheel, apparently to reduce the cost of a replacement panel if the original one gets damaged. Volkswagen has substantially improved the infotainment part of this setup's voice control functionality, which previously really wasn't very good at all. Now it's more conversational and it's easier to use, which is just as well because the design doesn't include the kind of lower transmission tunnel mounted rotary controller that's provided, say, with the rival BMW X5, which would allow you to more easily access different functions without taking your eyes off the road or needing to keep your hand hovering in mid-air in front of the screen. Other improvements to this central screen include lane level navigation, high resolution HD map data, and wireless functionality for the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring systems. This monitor is pretty easy to get to grips with, your starting point being this Apple-like white lower central square, which brings up a main menu with 4 left-hand tiles that can be personalized with the areas of functionality that you most commonly access. There's a further menu of features along the top of the screen, which expands when you bring your hand near to the monitor and swipe down. As usual in this segment, there are various online services, news, weather, parking, fuel station info, and so on. And here, thanks to an integrated eSIM, these so-called CarNet options display without the need for you to integrate in your phone. Although, with a WLAN wireless hotspot for up to 8 devices being one of the things included, you'll probably want to. Many of the Discover Pro Max setup's infotainment features can also be found on this separate 12-inch instrument binnacle screen, which separates its 2 main virtual dials with a central display that shows navigation mapping, driving data, safety system functionality, audio or phone readouts, or even, if it's fitted, an infrared display from the optional night vision system. Whatever you've selected here, if you need to see more, a tap on the steering wheel view button expands that central part of the monitor to take up the whole screen. We'd suggest you pay extra for the optional head-up display. That's so you can do things like that when you're still keeping the main elements of speed and driving data in plain sight. The ergonomics aren't perfect here. The haptic switches on the new steering wheel are fiddly to use, as are the touch-sensitive sliders for temperature control. Plus, the central screen interface is so big that there's nowhere to rest your thumb or hand when you're using it when you're driving. Apart from these irritations, though, it's very difficult indeed to fault the way the front of the cabin has been laid out. It's certainly easy to find a supportive driving position, especially if you've avoided base trim and your Touareg has these 14-way power-adjustable Ergo Comfort seats, which will always be leather upholstered, usually in Vienna black, although we would be tempted to pay the extra for the offered softer Verena leather option instead. This R model gets lovely stitched Puglia hide. There's no power adjustment option for the wheel, which looks rather too much like the one you get in a Golf, but like the seat, it offers a wide degree of movement and it feels good to hold. All-round visibility is fine. These rotary dials on the transmission tunnel for adjusting air suspension and the various driving modes are simple to use, and there's plenty of cabin storage. These twin cup holders by the gear stick still haven't been properly concealed by a sliding cover, but there is a lidded area at the base of the centre stack with a USB-C port, a 12-volt socket, and a now standard wireless phone charging mat. 2 more USB-C ports are in the cupboard box between the seats. All the USB ports, by the way, are in this revised model upgraded from 15 to 45 watts to permit faster charging of smartphones, tablets and laptops, although it is a pity that VW doesn't also provide a USB-A port for older devices, which is why we have to have an ugly converter lead. There's no overhead compartment here for your sunglasses and no sun visor ticket clips either, but you do get a compartment by the driver's right knee, netted storage in the passenger footwell, and decent sizing for the glove box and for deep door bins, which include bottle holders. Enough on the front, what's it like in the back? Well, the doors open nice and wide. That should make it easy to get child seats in. We remarked back in 2018 at this Mark III Touareg's original launch that given the length increase of this third generation design, it was really strange that Volkswagen hadn't added in a third seating row in this car, particularly given that European countries are denied the huge 7-seat Atlas SUV that the brand does offer in other markets. Don't get us wrong here. No one was ever really wanting this Touareg to become a fully fledged 7-seater like, say, a rival Audi Q7, which is almost 80 millimeters longer. But it does seem odd that the designers of this VW didn't even want to offer boot-mounted seating as an option. Still, staying with a 5-seat format allows for palatial levels of rear seat space for the passengers that you can take. Legroom is generous and it can be further extended by seat bases which slide over a range of 160 millimeters across a 60-40 split. Headroom's ample too, despite this CR series model's slightly swept back roofline. Yes, even taking into account this vast and now standard opening panoramic roof which floods the interior with welcome light. Back in 2018, this was the largest glass top that Volkswagen had ever designed, 1270 millimeters long and 825 mils wide, with an electrical section that can be moved back by 495 mils. The seatbacks recline in 3 stages, back to an angle of up to 21 degrees for greater comfort on longer journeys, but the chunky central transmission tunnel might mean a few compromises for the third seated occupant who's drawn the short straw and got stuck in the middle. Folk back here are favoured with seat back nets and deep pockets indoors. These feature classy vodka bar style translucent lighting strips which, with the ambient lighting pack fitted, change in shade according to the driver's selection from 30 colours. A centre armrest provides extra cup holders, and over the transmission tunnel, a fold-down centre panel reveals 12-volt and USB ports. There are twin vents, there are B-pillar vents, overhead reading lights, plus the 4-zone climate system provides separate digital temperature and fan controls for the back seat. That's another thing, actually, that's now standard. We'll finish by taking a look in the boot, another area of the car you might think would have been benefited by that decision not to allow for a third seating row. The rear tailgate is power operated with a gesture control feature, of course, and once it's raised, conventionally engined Touaregs will offer you 810 litres of space. That's 15 litres smaller than the boot offered by the Mercedes GLE, but it's 40 litres larger than the trunk of an Audi Q7, and there's a massive 165 litres more room than you get from a rival BMW X5. Unfortunately though, you won't get that much if you opt for a plug-in hybrid variant like the one we have here. With this model, thanks to the underfloor battery placement, carriage capacity falls substantially to 655 litres. There's 1400 millimeters of load space width and 1051 millimeter load area length, and it's easy to get stuff in thanks to the low and practically silver trimmed loading lip here. With the assistance of rear passengers, there's the option to vary the boot space on offer thanks to the sliding rear bench and the way that you can make the backs of the seats more vertical. If you've avoided base trim and you've got your Touareg with air suspension, you'll get these controls on the right hand cargo sidewall which allow you to select a lower load ride height, which is 40 mils closer to the deck, so lumping in heavy stuff will be easy. The controls for the optional electrically retracting tow bar would also reside here behind these blanked off switches. There's not much underfloor storage in a conventionally powered model, particularly if you go and specify the optional Dynaudio audio system, because that needs an additional subwoofer. So there's almost no underfloor storage either in this PHEV version too, but the necessary practical stuff, that's all covered off. So there's a 12-volt socket, of course, on the right, a light on the left, a warning triangle built into the tailgate here, a tonneau cover which retracts in concert with the electric hatch, and a couple of pull-out bag hooks and 4 chromed tie-down points. If you need more space, then your first option is to make use of the fact that the rear backrest here has a 40-20-40 split, so freeing up the central part to flatten for the carriage of long items like skis without disturbing a couple of rear-seated passengers. If that's not enough though, you can operate these useful sidewall mounted catches here to retract the full backrest. Unfortunately, it's one of those that doesn't automatically go flat when it first falls, and that forces you to have to go around to the side door and click it down into its final position. Even then, actually, it isn't quite flat. Nonetheless, a useful 1,800 litres of total capacity can be freed up in this configuration, or 1,675 litres with an e-hybrid model. Now, the last time we tried this Mark III Touareg back in 2018, it was pitched in the £50,000 to £60,000 price bracket. Now though, this car isn't the value proposition it once was. You'll almost certainly be paying in the £70,000 to £80,000 bracket for this updated version, which was pretty standard for the large SUV class at the time of our test in early 2024. The mainstream range is built around two trim levels, Elegance and Black Edition, and there's this top plug-in performance R model as the lineup's flagship, and this is priced from launch at just over £80,000. As we told you in our driving section, there's a 3-litre V6 engine range in lots of flavours, TSI petrol, TDI diesel, and then the two top petrol plug-in models, the e-hybrid and the e-hybrid R. All come mated to 4-motion 4-wheel drive and an 8-speed Tiptronic auto gearbox. From launch, Touareg prices actually started from around £68,000, with the e-hybrid version that many will want priced from around £70,000. Let's take a look now at how this kind of pricing positions this model in its segment. This Volkswagen's near £70,000 price starting point would also get you base versions of its two similarly engineered VW Group cousins, the Audi Q7, which seats up to 7 of course, and the Porsche Cayenne, which like the Touareg can only take up to 5. Outside of the Wolfsburg conglomerate, your main options, if you're looking for a large 5-seat luxury SUV, are BMW's X5, and that's almost identically priced to a Touareg in conventional and PHEV guises, and the Mercedes GLE, which costs a bit more. That's priced from around £78,000 at the time of this test, or from around £88,000 in PHEV form. You could also look at the Lexus RX, priced in the £60,000 to £70,000 bracket. That's got a bit less power though, and in its most affordable form is a self-charging hybrid that you can't plug in. The Land Rover Discovery and the Volvo XC90 sit in the same kind of pricing ballpark as this VW, but they're not really competing for quite the same kind of customer because they're 7-seaters. Most of the other potential options in this class tend to price themselves out of mainstream contention rather. A Range Rover Sport, well, that's starting from around £84,000 at the time of this film, and the least expensive Maserati Levante costs from around £93,000 at the time of this review. If, having considered all those options, you decide it is a Touareg that you really want, well, then you're going to want to know exactly how generous VW has been here when it comes to standard equipment. Well, the answer there is that this car has been generously specified across the range, and that includes, as standard on all models, DCC, Dynamic Chassis Control Adaptive Damping, so you can tweak the ride to suit driving setting preferences, which are dialed in via the standard driver profile selection driving mode system. There are also separate 4-motion active control driving modes for off-road use, plus there's standard ACC, Adaptive Cruise Control, which uses a radar sensor distance monitoring system to automatically keep you a safe distance behind the vehicle in front at highway speeds. Its incorporated predictive cruise feature can automatically modulate your speed according to road signs and predict those signs based on GPS data. And of course there's plenty else. Even the base elegance version comes with 20-inch Braga dark graphite wheels, a panoramic sunroof, IQ Light HD Matrix full LED headlamps and tail lamps, front and rear parking sensors, power folding electric heated mirrors, heated windscreen washer jets, auto headlamps and wipers, there's keyless entry, black roof rails, there's a powered tailgate too, and an alarm of course. Inside you'll find Vienna black leather seats which are heated at the front. There's cruise control, 4-zone air care climatronic climate control too, which also cools the glove box, a rear view camera, a wireless smartphone charger, there's an auto dimming rear view mirror, and also a multifunction leather trimmed steering wheel. As we mentioned in the design section, Volkswagen now standardizes the clever Innovision cockpit twin screen cabin setup in this car that was previously an expensive option on the mainstream models. This replaces the conventional instrument binnacle dials with a 12-inch customizable TFT digital display and offers a Discover Pro Max central dash infotainment screen, which is 15 inches in size. Those two things virtually turn the entire fascia into one functioning screen. Improvements to this setup with this updated model here include greater flexibility with the software, upgrades to the HD map data, and a new voice control system with more conversational intuition. Otherwise, the system works much as before, so you'll get self-learning navigation, which anticipates your needs, and also so-called Nav Gen 4 routing, which alters route calculations taking into account the traffic conditions. There's also a built-in eSIM, which ensures that mobile online services, including those for news and for weather, can work without a smartphone. And of course, the audio system is of the hybrid radio variety, which means that it can combine terrestrial and internet radio signals for the best possible sound. Plus, the package also includes a 64GB hard drive, 3D mapping, voice control, an 8-speaker DAB audio system and traffic sign recognition, along with Volkswagen's App Connect package, which allows your smartphone to link now wirelessly via the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and MirrorLink systems. Also standard is the brand's CarNet Guide and Inform setup, which gives you in-car online access to a whole range of useful journeying information. So everything from traffic news to information on fuel and parking prices at your place of destination. And you get the CarNet Security and Service package, which integrates your Touareg with a Volkswagen call center, and that can provide emergency assistance plus breakdown and service notification too. In addition, you get a special app which will allow you to remotely lock and unlock the car and to access driving information from it from wherever you happen to be. Should you pay the extra to upgrade to sportier Black Edition spec? Well, many Touareg buyers do. The package certainly gives this car much more of a stylish demeanour, including, as it does, larger 21-inch wheels in Leeds black, air suspension, and a smarter look too, courtesy of rear tinted glass and a dark themed Black Edition pack with black styling comfort bumpers. You also get Volkswagen's useful Park Assist Pro system, which includes an area view camera format and can park your Touareg for you and remember regularly accessed spaces. Now inside you get more supportive Ergo Comfort front seats with power operation and memory settings as well. That only leaves this top R variant, which is the one that you'd ideally want, of course. This is set apart by 22-inch Estoril black diamond turned alloy wheels with blue R branded brake calipers, plus there are black door mirrors and special sill panel mouldings with an illuminated R logo. Inside there's a 30-colour ambient lighting setup and the stainless steel pedals too, plus soft Puglia leather upholstery with front R branded Ergo Comfort seats which incorporate active climate control. Onto options. Air suspension is optional with base elegance trim, but quite pricey at just over £1,700. Go for a conventionally engined TSI or TDI model with mid-level Black Edition trim, and you'll also be able to option in the high-tech drive options we briefed you on in our driving section: active roll compensation and all-wheel steering. Across the range, you might also want to add in a head-up display and a night vision system, which uses a thermal imaging camera to register infrared radiation produced by people or animals and display them on the digital cockpit screen there. You could also add coloured ambient lighting, a heated windscreen, laminated rear safety glass and rear window sun blinds too. If tarmac traction is a priority, you can option in 21-inch high-performance tyres. There's plenty of optional seat stuff too. Active climate front seats with memory settings, massaging front seats, softer Verona leather upholstery and rear seat heating. You could also add the Park Assist Pro auto parking system we just mentioned. At extra cost, that can be operated via your smartphone, which allows you to stand outside the car and park it with your handset. That sounds like a recipe for stress to us though. We'd rather spend any extra cash instead on the optional Dynaudio Consequence 730 watt sound system upgrade. Bear in mind that you're also probably going to be paying your Volkswagen dealer extra for your chosen paint colour. Solid pure white is the only one which comes as standard here. Otherwise, there are various metallic, pearl effect, ultra metallic and premium signature shades. We have lapis blue metallic here. As usual, you can also upgrade the wheels on mainstream models. There are various 20 and 21-inch rim options. As for practical stuff, well, it's well worth ticking the box for the optional travel package, which gives you side window blinds and the luggage area management system with movable bars, plus a mat and a net for the cargo area too. And you might well want to option in the power folding tow bar, which includes Volkswagen's clever trailer assist system. That'll be a massive boon if, like us, you struggle with reversing trailers or caravans into tight spaces. With trailer assist, your reverse steering direction can be controlled via a joystick, the mirror adjustment switch actually, from inside the car, and you follow steering angles shown in the instrument cluster. On to safety. Now, predictably, there's a full roster of standard, sophisticated camera-driven safety kit. The ACC, Adaptive Cruise Control System, which, as we said earlier, is fitted across the range, has a predictive feature which draws on navigation data to anticipate road conditions and traffic flow. The Touareg's lane assist feature will sound a warning if you drift out of your lane on the highway before subtly steering the car back to where it ought to be. This feature automatically activates every time you start the car, which means there is the annoyance of having to keep turning it off if you don't like it. Now, apparently this intrusive functionality gained Volkswagen an extra half a star on the Euro NCAP tests. As you'd expect these days from a luxury car, there's standard autonomous braking. The Volkswagen maker calls its system front assist, and like other similar setups, this one will scan the road ahead as you drive, looking for potential accident hazards and warning you if one's detected and automatically braking if necessary. For specific help of this kind of urban speeds, you have the backup of city emergency braking. This works at under 19 miles an hour, and it's again there to boost brake pressure so as to help prevent a collision. In addition, as we mentioned earlier, there's a traffic sign recognition feature that pictures speed signs as you pass them and displays them on the dash. And you get a driver alert system that monitors your driving reactions for drowsiness and prompts you to stop for a restorative coffee if it detects any lethargy. In addition, across the range, the Volkswagen brand has installed an automatic post-collision braking system. Now, that automatically brakes the car down to 6 miles an hour after a collision. So if, say, someone hits you and understandably you go to pieces a bit, the car will automatically sort itself out. We should also mention the IQ Light HD LED matrix beam headlights, which come with a poor weather light and a glare-free main beam too, so you don't have to dip them at night. The matrix system projects an interactive light carpet onto the lane ahead, the lane light. This makes driving after dark more comfortable, and it facilitates easier navigation of conditions like narrow highway roadworks at night, because the bright light carpet follows the lane with extreme precision. As for more expected safety stuff, well, of course, all Touaregs get twin front, side and curtain airbags, although there's no driver's knee bag. And in addition, there are ISOFIX child seat fastenings and anti-whiplash front head restraints. There's a tyre pressure loss indicator too, although a full tyre pressure monitoring system with a proper dash display costs extra. Other standard safety features include ESC stability control, an ASR traction control system, and an electronic differential lock that's there to facilitate smooth starts on split friction road surfaces. So if one side of the car is on wet leaves and the other side isn't. In addition, there's ABS Plus anti-lock braking, and panic stops will be advertised to following motorists by automatically activating hazard warning lights. The hill descent control system makes use of ABS functionality, and at low speeds it works to ease you down steep, slippery slopes. A hill hold assist stops you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions, and there's also an active bonnet, the rear edge of which rises instantly to minimise head injuries in the nightmare scenario of an impact with a pedestrian or a cyclist. We should also underline the importance of the CarNet security and service package, which is incorporated into both the Discover infotainment systems. As we said earlier on, this provides an eCall service which automatically alerts the emergency services if the airbags go off in an accident. If you want to go further with safety provision, your dealer will suggest that you add in the extra cost Driver's Assistance Package Plus option. This includes various additional camera driven and driver assist features. So let's talk you through those now. The useful side scan feature, a blind spot monitor which warns you of oncoming vehicles or cyclists when you're engaged in reversing out of a parking space. And you'll be very glad of front cross traffic assist too, which works when you're coming out of junctions, driveways or parking spaces, and this warns you of vehicles approaching from either side, and it's also able to automatically initiate emergency braking if you don't react. If despite all this you do go on to have a collision, you'll be very glad of the proactive occupant protection system. This uses the front assist autonomous braking system sensors to sense when an impact is imminent, and then it braces the car to better withstand it by instantly closing the windows and the sunroof too. Finally, emergency assist. This is a setup which uses the adaptive cruise control system that we mentioned earlier on, and it works on the move to sense any situation where the driver has stopped operating the controls. Perhaps he or she has been taken ill, for example. If that is the case, after a series of warnings, the electronics will gradually move the car into the left-hand lane and bring it to a safe, controlled stop, all the while flashing hazard warning lights to alert following motorists. We mentioned that the optional Driver's Assistance Package Plus includes some driver assist features too, primarily Volkswagen's usual travel assist semi-autonomous driving assistance setup, which in concert with the ACC cruise control setup can take care of a lot of the driving duties for you at highway speeds, and also enables assisted steering, braking and acceleration at speeds of up to 130 miles an hour. By integrating the signals from the front camera as well as GPS and map data, the Travel Assist setup can incorporate into its assistance input local speed limit information, town boundary signs, junctions and roundabouts. Travel Assist also incorporates traffic jam and roadwork lane assist. Now this allows this Volkswagen to drive itself in low speed traffic queues at up to 37 miles an hour, using the previously mentioned lane assist technology to keep the car in lane. If you have to regularly commute in stop and go traffic, this is a feature that you'll really come to depend on. Automotive brands across the world have been racking their brains over the last few years for ways to make large luxury SUVs like this one a bit more efficient. Most rivals to this Touareg have turned to plug-in electric powertrains as a solution in this regard. That's technology the Volkswagen Group has too, and uses in the Porsche Cayenne and the Bentley Bentayga models, which also share this car's engineering. It was a little surprising then not to see a petrol-electric option offered to mainstream Touareg buyers from the original launch of this Mark III CR series version, particularly as the previous Mark II model had it way back in 2010. As we mentioned in our driving section, Volkswagen's put that right as part of this third generation models update, adding in a mainstream 381 PS e-hybrid model to the lineup to sit alongside the top 462 PS e-hybrid R flagship variant that we've been trying here. Unfortunately though, neither car gets the very latest flavour of the VW Group PHEV tech, which was developed for this car's MLB Evo platform. We've just been reviewing that with the latest version of the similarly engineered rival Porsche Cayenne. The Cayenne now has a 25.9 kilowatt-hour battery capable of taking the e-hybrid version of that car up to 46 miles between charges. Both e-hybrid Touaregs, in contrast, make do with a much smaller, older tech 14.3 kilowatt-hour battery pack, hence the far more restricted 31-mile EV range between 2.5-hour charges. That is some way behind the curve in an era when rival Mercedes GLE 400e, well, that'll take you up to 70 miles on battery power alone. And that lower EV range is a problem, not just because it makes it less likely that you could do virtually all your local mileage with a Touareg on battery power, but more significantly because it means, well, a considerably different set of efficiency stats, rated at 128.4 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 51 grams per kilometre for the standard e-hybrid, and 122.8 mpg and 53 grams per kilometre for the top R e-hybrid version. Those figures mean that the PHEV versions of this Volkswagen can't fall into the low 8% BIK tax band that you'll find applied to obvious segment PHEV rivals. Both Touareg e-hybrids are instead BIK rated at 15%. Presumably, given that the improved technology has already been developed within the VW Group for the Cayenne, Volkswagen will get around to addressing this at some point in the future, perhaps even when you're viewing this review, I suppose. It's just a pity and rather surprising that the brand couldn't have done so as part of this facelift. The usual plug-in hybrid EV driver tools feature on both e-hybrids, which means hybrid and electric drive settings. The rather inefficient option too of charging the battery from the engine, that's when you're in the eco mode, and also a reserve charge feature. Now that will allow you to save your battery charge for later on in the journey when you might need it, say for example for the city driving that you might have to do at the end of a long trip. The centre screen's vehicle section has an E-range monitor, so you can clearly see how far your remaining battery charge is going to take you. And also an energy flow monitor, so you can see at a glance in real time what's being powered by what. We mentioned earlier the drawbacks of this Volkswagen's older generation plug-in hybrid drivetrain, but of course you might still be quite pleased by the thought of a Touareg that's able to record over 120 miles on each gallon of fuel. Inevitably though, in the real world, as with any PHEV, 3-digit fuel figures are pie in the sky. What you'll actually get is more like the returns of a good diesel, and as we told you earlier on in this review, this Touareg range does still provide one of those in the form of the venerable 3-litre TDI unit that the VW Group refuses to let go of, despite this engine's uncomfortable placement in the current environmental zeitgeist. This powertrain does, in our view, still represent the sweet spot in the Touareg lineup, and on the face of things, it does remain decently efficient given the weight that's being lugged around here. Both the 231 and 286 PS versions of the power plant record the same figures, 34.4 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 215 grams per kilometre of CO2. Even that, though, is quite a way behind the current curve. A rival BMW X5 xDrive 30D manages up to 39.8 miles per gallon and up to 187 grams per kilometre. Those Touareg customers for whom this lack of efficiency might be a problem will be well advised not to look at the returns of the sole conventional petrol model, the 3-litre TSI. That can only manage bests of 25.7 miles per gallon and 251 grams per kilometre. Helping with all the quoted readings are the usual eco-minded features you'll find on a car of this kind, and you'd expect to. Regenerative battery charging to reclaim energy that would otherwise be lost under braking. Stop-start system to cut the engine when you don't need it, when you're stuck in traffic or waiting at the traffic lights. You'll also get the benefit of Volkswagen's DSG transmission technology. That includes a coasting function, which at cruising speeds will disconnect the gearbox. That leaves the engine to idle until you next need it. Of course, to achieve optimum running cost returns, the driver will need to do his or her part. That means regularly selecting the most frugal eco setting in the driver profile selection driving mode system. There's also a convenience consumers section in the center dash monitor. That allows you to check on the way the air conditioning and also the ventilated seats are draining the battery. Can you be bothered with all that? Well, if you can't, it's no good complaining that the quoted running cost figures don't really match the ones that you're actually achieving. The other cost-related facts surrounding this Volkswagen are rather more straightforward though. You wouldn't expect an aspiring premium brand to achieve residual values quite as high as those of the established players, and this one doesn't either. Independent experts reckon that after 3 years and 36,000 miles, a Touareg will hold on to around 50% of its original value. That's compared to 59% for an Audi Q7 and 66% for a Porsche Cayenne. We should give you a feel for the potential insurance costings too. Mainstream Touaregs are rated at between groups 41 and 47. This top R version is up at group 49. Like rivals in the segment, all versions of this VW are subject to the road tax level imposed over the £40,000 price point, an extra £390, which runs for 5 years. That means the road fund licence you'll pay for year 1 of ownership on a 3-litre TSI V6 petrol model will be £2,220. For the TDI diesel, the first year figure would fall to £1,565, followed by a standard tax rate of £180 in years 2 to 5. For the two e-hybrid PHEVs, the first year rate would be £560 and then a standard rate of £170 in years 2 to 5. As for servicing, well, as usual with Volkswagen models, there's a choice of either fixed or flexible maintenance packages. Now you're going to choose the fixed approach if you cover less than 10,000 miles a year, and with this, the car will typically be looked at every 12 months. If your daily commute is more than 25 miles and your Touareg will regularly be driven on longer distance journeys, then you'll be able to work with the flexible regime, and that can see you travelling up to 18,000 miles between garage visits or every 2 years, whichever is sooner. The TDI engines, like most modern diesel power plants, get a selective catalytic reduction filter to cut down on nitrous oxide, and as with similar rival units, they're designed around the injection of a urea-based solution called AdBlue into the exhaust gas stream to help to clean up the emissions. What else? Warranties? Well, the standard package is 3 years and 60,000 miles. Can't really see why Volkswagen couldn't extend that mileage limit to 100,000 miles. That is, after all, what's on offer with its mechanically very similar LCV models. Doing that, though, of course, probably wouldn't give Volkswagen dealers so much of an opportunity to sell the extended warranty packages. There is one for 4 years and 75,000 miles, or if you plan to see a bit more of the world in your Touareg, then there's a 5-year 90,000 mile package too. Whatever your decision, your car will come with 3 years of pan-European roadside assistance. That has no mileage restriction, incidentally. The paint wipe warranty lasts for 3 years, and as you'd expect, this model is also protected by a 12-year anti-corrosion package. Because like an ordinary Touareg e-hybrid, this Touareg R retains the VW Group's older, smaller 14.3 kilowatt-hour battery rather than the larger 25.9 kilowatt-hour unit now fitted to its close cousin, the Porsche Cayenne e-hybrid. The EV range on offer here, around 31 miles, is some way down on the current prevailing class standard, as correspondingly are the efficiency stats, up to 122.8 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 53 grams per kilometre of CO2. And the car's BIK tax rate, which is 15% rather than the 8% figure you'll get with most direct class rivals. A Mode 3 32 amp 7.2 kilowatt charging cable is included to top up the battery from public charge points. Charging an empty battery in this way will take 2.5 hours from a garage wall box, while using a household 3-pin socket, that'll take 8.5 hours. As long as you don't need 7 seats in your large luxury SUV, this Volkswagen is still a hard option to ignore if you're looking for an appealing balance between style, speed and SUV-ness, with reasonable pricing and running costs that suggest more modest means. True, it doesn't have the brand cachet of some of its illustrious rivals, but perhaps that's no bad thing. For this car's loyal band of buyers, this Touareg's unpretentious approach is, after all, one of its biggest draws. It's a pity, though, that so few of them know exactly how capable it is in the rough stuff. Of course, a cynic might ask in what way a Touareg is class leading, and it would be tough to pinpoint one, despite this updated model's various embellishments. If you're the kind of person who might normally choose, say, a Mercedes or a Lexus in this segment, then you still might not feel that this Volkswagen has quite enough of the kind of opulent style that a car in this class really needs. And while we've enjoyed this top R performance version, we really can't help being a little disappointed with the PHEV tech that it showcases, which now lags significantly behind key rivals in terms of EV range and BIK payments. The efficiency figures of the other more conventional engines in the range aren't particularly stellar either. As before, this Volkswagen's overall chances of success reside in managing to convince enough people enough of the time that it covers the required bases competently. If that sounds like damning with faint praise, it's not meant to. Think of this car as an artful exercise in managing compromises instead. It's still well worth your attention, and with prices now overlapping with some smaller upper mid-sized SUVs, the value proposition speaks for itself. As before, to want one of these, you're going to have to be one of those people who can't see the point of fitting a third seating row into their large SUV. We can't help think that it would have been wise for Volkswagen to engineer in that option and offer it at extra cost. But of course, the Volkswagen Group conglomerate has the similarly priced Audi Q7 to offer that feature. Probably they don't really care which one you buy, but it was important that these two products should have their own distinct appeal. The Touareg, it now does, and we can see why the right kind of buyer might really like it.